What's up? What's up? Back with another one. And if you're new, welcome to this channel. Okay, what we do here is we take scientific evidence and we show that it corroborates with the ancient stories and what they call mythology. If you haven't seen the series so far, check it out. It'll make a lot of sense, the things I'm saying. Okay, a lot of stuff might come out of left field if you haven't watched what I posted. Okay. So today's video, obviously you've seen the title, it's about the sun. First things first, no person knows exactly how the sun works or what it is. So that's where we're starting. Anybody who tells you they do, lying. Okay. So what we're gonna do in this video today is prove that the sun isn't what the standard model says it is. Okay, so we're gonna go through that real quick. All right, let's get that started. Okay, so first things first, the sun is not a divine manifestation. It was created by beings. All right, later in the video we'll get into that, how Saturn's the original sun. I'm gonna go through a list of things that the sun is and it isn't. Okay, and then we'll get into that. So the sun isn't a divine manifestation. The sun is a transmitter transmitting energy from another dimension. Okay. We're also going to prove that the sun is a cathode. We're going to prove the sun's corona, radiation, and heat are residual effects. Okay. We're going to learn that the sun is hollow and it only has an outer corona. Okay. We're going to learn that the sun is green, that the sun is actually cold on the inside, and it's alive. And it is close. It's not 93 million miles away like they say within the standard model. Alright, and lastly, that the sun is not a nuclear furnace. It's only fusion in the arc flares. Meaning the solar flares and the solar wind, that's where they measure the fusion. They never measured fusion inside the sun. Okay, very simple. So remember this picture later on in the video when we talk about the black dot inside the sun? Okay. Because it's already been measured and photographed. But they try to say it's lens flares and different things that have to do with cameras and videos and stuff like that. Okay. That's how they write that off. But anyway, the sun isn't a furnace. So, on this channel, we're using the scientific method to make our points, right? And we're also showing that a lot of their points don't fit the scientific method, and people aren't willing to challenge that because they're scared of these things that people throw at them and they don't want to be embarrassed or judged or whatever. Okay, here I'm not worried about that stuff. So anyone in the world that could present one furnace in the history anywhere that's colder on the inside than the outside, then the sun could be a furnace. But it's not, because no one's ever showed a furnace that's cooler on the inside. What do I mean? This is according to their own science. Okay, I'm not saying it's true or not, that they've measured or not. This is according to their own science. Okay, so if I was debating a Christian, I would use their own Bible to debunk what they're talking about. Just like I'm going to use their own model to debunk their own model. Okay, so they, according to scientists, the sun's inner surface is 6,000 degrees. The inner surface. While the corona is 12 million degrees. So the corona is on the outside of the sun. The inner surface is 6,000 degrees. So if NASA or any scientist or anyone, you know, the smartest scientists, you know, because, we're so dumb on this channel. We don't know what we're talking about, right? So they could present one furnace that works that way. Then they just debunked that, we're lying. But until then, scientifically, according to the scientific model, the sun cannot be a furnace. Very simple. Okay. So as far as the sun's distance, we're using the moon's shadow as evidence of their particular distance. Okay. And there's a lot of evidence on how the sun and moon aren't close luminaries. There's evidence on how they are close through different observations. We're going to use the observations that are saying they're close, okay? If someone wants to literally have a debate on that, we could get deeper into this subject, okay? But this is going to show, I'm going to provide evidence showing that they can't recreate that the sun is that far, okay? So, and they can only go off observations. They can't actually experimentally prove what they're talking about. So, the Umbra Penumbra, okay? Umbra Penumbra is something that scientists make cartoons of, but no one has ever demonstrated that ever. And shadows don't work the way Umbra Penumbra are presented. If anyone could even create an experiment showing shadows working that way, then I'll take this stuff back. But until then, we're going off the scientific model on how shadows work, and we know Umbra Penumbra has never been demonstrated. You could go on Google. You could look at the experiments. Look, it nothing proves anything close to what they're talking about. Okay, so in the last two videos, I presented different works from Eric Dollar. Okay, if you're not familiar with him, he's an electrical engineer, one of the only people to recreate a lot of Tesla's works. Okay, and the reason he's not that popular of a figure is because he talks against relativity, and you know how they get when you talk about those things. Okay, but Eric Dollar's sun research. Okay, the sun is hollow, cold, and there's no fusion in the sun, only in the arc flares. Okay. So for people who want to dive into Eric Dollar's research, because he was hired by the government to study the sun for 4 years, okay, and a lot of people already are familiar with his content per se when it comes to the sun, because a lot of his videos got famous, all right, that he's talking about the sun. But he actually builds off a man named Wilhelm Reich and his works, okay, and we went over his works too in the other videos. If you haven't seen it, okay, link will be in the top right of the video. Okay, that's the whole series, and that would be in the cosmology part of that. All right, but Wilhelm Reich. Okay, so within his theories, and in the last videos, we already proved that they proved orgone in a laboratory. They already recreated this stuff. Okay, so this is not woo woo. We're already from the point of knowing, right? So light is a local illumination of physical orgone fields, or in other words, when the sun's field interacts with the earth's field, that's where the illumination gets created. Okay, so the space between them, so in space, there's no like light in space. You won't be able to see light in space. The light is a local illumination of orgone fields of bodies themselves, like the sun and the earth. Okay. Light rays don't come from the sun. Waves of excitation are transmitted from the sun's field to the earth's field. These fields come into a state of illumination, which explain the illumination of the sun's corona and the earth's blue shine. Okay, so according to the orgone theory, the sun's corona and the blue tint of the earth, that light, is the excitation of the two fields. Right? Very simple. It explains phenomena like dawn before sunrise, which was supported by his laboratory experiments, where orgone energy was significantly stronger before the sunrise and after sunset. Okay, so he already did experiments in his own lab, okay, showing orgone and how it affects the earth and the sun at different times, right? And within his own paper, I'm going to post the paper. Okay, it's going to be in the description. He himself says in the paper that we need more observations, further observations. In his time, we already got that with Eric Dollar. Okay, so Eric Dollar furthers these works to show that what he's saying in this next sentence, right? That this is in quotations because this is what he says in his own paper. Okay, this is going to validate that. Okay. The orgone energy is far more excited even in the completely light-free dark room before sunrise and after sunset than during the day or during the night. One can observe the same phenomena on the smooth mirror of the lake. The pulsatory movement is accelerated when the sun rises. From the above, it follows logically that the corona of the sun is also a local phenomena of illumination of the orgone envelope of the sun. Okay, if you want to learn about the envelope of the earth, the envelope of the sun, what does that even mean? You have to research Wilhelm Reich. Okay, Wilhelm Reich was arrested for his works, and a lot of his inventions and stuff were publicly burned. Okay, it's not easy finding his works for a reason. All right, he did a lot of things. So, moving on from that, sunspots are evidence for the hollow earth. Okay, sunspots are what create solar flares, right? And help contribute to space activity and space weather. Okay, people have already zoomed in and peered directly through sunspots. Okay, and the sun is hollow. Okay, they're trying to say that there's plasma spinning inside the sun, but you could look at it and see there's not. Okay, according to their model, it's cooler inside the sun. How is that possible if it's so hot in the center? So they're saying it's hot, cold, hot. But not cold, but cooler, hotter. That doesn't even make sense. Okay. So you have another fellow, Stephen Goodfellow. Okay, and he has his research on the hollow plasma vortex sun. Okay. So hollow vortex sun, what does that mean? The sun was created by beings, okay, through magnetic compression. Okay, we're gonna see that later on how that works. Okay, but for now, we're gonna explain how the sun is. It's not hollow. There's fields inside the sun, but a field isn't a physical thing. That's why it's hollow. Okay, so no evidence of iron or helium in solar spectrum. No fusion on the sun. Scientist M.A. Padmanabha. If I butchered your name, sir, I apologize. Okay, but anyone could read into this article, okay, and there is going to be evidence for the no fusion inside the sun. Okay, only within the flares. Okay, because what's happening is you got magnetic compression, right, and then the plasma compresses into a ball because a ball or a torus is the best shape to compress energy, which is why the universe is a ball torus, because it's a compression of energy. That's what the demiurge did, right? So the magnetic fluctuations and the things that are going on release energy. And that's what fusion is. It's a loss of energy. So that loss of energy happens when it comes out the sun like that. Okay, but when they measure these things, they think, oh, the fusion is inside the sun and it's created through this gravitational pressure, and no one's ever proved anything like that, and it's all craziness, and we already debunked the whole relativity stuff. So we're really trying to figure out how it works through like actual science, and you'll be surprised how many scientists have like evidence, right, when it comes to the Sapphire Project and Eric Lerners and the Eric Dollars and all these people who have evidence for the sun and the plasma and the magnetic compression. Anyway, sorry for butchering your name, sir. The solar dynamo exists near the surface of the sun, not inside the sun, not inside of it. Okay, by Jeffrey Vazel. All right, anyone could look up his works. All right, the solar dynamo. Okay, the magnetic compressions, the magnetic fluctuations, the magnetic fields. Where is that coming from? Okay, it's not coming from spinning plasma inside the sun. Okay, it's just not happening that way. Okay, you have more people, right? Like The Sun Is Not Hot by John Lear. He's more of like the conspiracy, like the UFO guys, and he messes with people like man, what's his name? Like Stephen Greer, people like that, and it's Bob Lazar, and you know, we're dealing with people like Bob Lazar. I'm sure he's seen some things, and it's not even. I don't even want to talk about people, but he lied about his credentials. Okay, he lied about it. He lied about it, like educational backgrounds, stuff like that, and you can't take that back. So it's hard to believe someone, even though you've probably seen some things. You did it to yourself, brother. Anyway, evidence that the sun isn't a gas ball shooting out fire in space, right? Even though they don't technically say that, that's how they like present it in a way sometimes, which is crazy. But satellites come back from space frozen. Okay, there's a bunch of them. You could see there's videos on this stuff. Okay, so space is not hot because it doesn't. It's the sun has to interact with another body's field, and then those field interactions will create the illumination, and within the illumination you have like the atmospheres. Those get excited, and those excitations create heat. That's the residual effect, heat, radiation and stuff like that. And it's actually the magnetic lines of force and the dielectric lines of force that are being like vibrated like strings. Okay, that's where string theory comes from. Okay, but they're trying to make these things physical, and that's the problem. All right, so I mentioned the Sapphire Project earlier. Right, so this is a cathode ray tube. Okay, and Tesla has a great quote that I don't know the quote word for word, but he says something along the lines of like, scientists are crazy for thinking that the light from a match is the same light coming from the stars, right? And that it all travels at the speed of light, whether you light this or it's that, it's the same. So I know this is like a flashlight, but these bodies aren't flashlights. So I don't want this like picture to get stuck in the head as far as what these planets and stars are. Okay, so the sun is a transmitter transmitting information from one dimension into another, and no one knows exactly how that's happening. Okay, but what is a transmitter? It's an electronic device that produces radio waves, light pulses, or electrical signals to send information over a distance. Okay, so when the ancients say the sun was spoken into existence, right, they're talking about the magnetic fluctuations, right? So when the sun being alive and communicating, that communication is through radio waves. Okay, because radio waves are sound messages sent by electromagnetic frequency. Okay, so this electromagnetic frequency, when you tune in to the radio station, you can hear what the sun is trying to say. But since the sun don't speak English, just like the wind don't speak English, the water don't speak English, that doesn't mean they don't have voices. Okay, that doesn't mean they don't speak. Okay, so we know that plasma self-organizes into complex life. Okay, sometimes even more complex than how we see, right? So we know that the sun is a transmitter transmitting electrical information, sending it to us, and we can actually get sound messages from that. Okay, and it self-organizes itself into complex organic life. Okay, that sounds very alive. All right, so we're gonna get into how exactly the sun works a little bit. Okay, and it's going to make sense. And if you haven't seen my last videos, I suggest you do, because we're going off like Eric Lerner's model. We're going off ARP's cosmology and Alvin's galactic circuit, and a bunch of different people who all provide evidence for these things. Okay, and all their works actually unite very beautifully. So the sun's corona releases plasma, creating solar wind. Right? So when we're talking about fusion, that's the loss of energy. That's what's happening, the loss of energy. Right? So, and particularly coronal holes, which are strong afterspouts of magnetism. Okay? So remember, magnetic fluctuations, right? Solar wind is responsible for atmospheres on planets and space weather. Okay? So what happens? Plasma Z-pinch, which is compressed plasma, creates nuclear fusion. So you compress this plasma, right? It compresses to a point where the energy gets released, and that's what fusion is. Okay, very simple. Cathodes are positive, meaning refraction. If people haven't seen my other videos, very simple. A torus field, electric field, you have refraction, you have compression. There's no such thing as a north or south. You could cut the magnet in half, there'll still be a north or south. You could do that indefinitely, because it's refraction and compression. Okay, so a cathode is refraction. Okay, it's high capacity compression. Okay, so a man named Christian Birkeland Okay, in his works, he suggested that the Earth and the interstellar medium act as anodes. So the sun is a cathode, and the other bodies that aren't stars are anodes. So you have stars are cathodes, and you have everything else anodes, including the medium. Okay, so you have these bodies that release energy, and then these other bodies that absorb that energy. Okay, so this is how galaxies form, okay, through Birkeland currents, okay? So Birkeland currents, all right, created by the same man Birkeland, all right? It was predicted, and we've later already established that these things exist, right? So the sun's corona is a massive electrical currents that flow along geomagnetic lines of force, okay? Lines of force, the magnetic lines of force. If you ever put iron filings next to a magnet and you see how the iron filings, how the energy forms, those are lines of force. That's what they call lines of force. They're invisible, but they're the force. That's where the force is going, right? These lines link the magnetosphere and the ionosphere. These magnetic lines of force, okay? Pay attention, because that's going to be very critical. They power the Saturnian aurora. So the aurora fields on different planets, including Earth, have to do with Birkeland currents. Okay. They are driven by solar waves. They flow towards the pole on the morning side and away on the evening side, forming concentric sheets around the poles, responsible for forming auroral arcs. Okay. So when we're talking about double sheath, right, or we're talking about Wilhelm Reich's fields and how the orgone field, the field interactions, and how the orgone field actually, it spins one way, it spins another way, and there's two orgone fields interacting with each other, right? This is the same thing, but in Birkeland currents, right? So see how all these evidences line up and how everything makes sense when you drop all the materialistic science, okay? So then you also have something called eddy currents, okay? And these are circular swirling loops of EMF current. Okay, so loops of EMFs, right? Electromagnetic frequencies, right? Induced by a changing magnetic field, converts kinetic energy into heat. Okay, so the movement of these fields, right? The release of that energy, right? When the lines of force get excited, they literally create radiation and heat. That's how they heat the planet. Okay? Very simple. Alpha waves. Okay? These are low frequency transverse EMF oscillations, okay? Electromagnetic frequencies oscillating, being excited. In magnetized plasma, they travel across magnetic lines of force, okay? Causing ions to isolate, acting as strings, carrying energy across long distances. Remember I said strings? An ion is just high energy, okay? There's no like electron. All these things we're visualizing as little things. They're not things, right? We went over what the electron is. It's high capacity, okay? An electron ionizes, it becomes higher capacity, right? So when you vibrate these lines of force, right, you excite them, it creates more capacity for higher energy, which is why it fucking illuminates, okay? And heats, all right? They heat the solar corona, powering auroras and affecting space weather. Believed to solve the corona heating problem, confirmed by satellite data, magnetohydrodynamics. Okay. So, really quick, when we talk about space weather, this is more evidence that we're all is very much closer than what they say, okay? Because the Earth, the Sun, and the Moon all share the same atmosphere, okay? The heliosphere, the Sun, and the Earth both share the same atmosphere, okay? So we're talking about everything within the same atmosphere. So when they talk about space weather, let's talk about weather within an atmosphere. They're not talking about space, okay? Because space is just a shadow, and it's I'm losing the word. It's a field. It's a version of a field. It's like an effect of a field. I don't have the right word right now, but it'll come to me. Anyway, moving on. Okay, observed in the magnetosphere of Earth interacts with the ionosphere and contributes to auroral events. Okay, double sheets. Okay, the double sheets, Remember, you have two fields, right? Whether it's plasma, whether it's a magnetic field, these two fields and how they interact and how they create this compression, refraction, which end up like maximizing the amount of energy that could be held within a system. Okay, so double sheath, real quick, usually happens near a cathode. Okay, very interesting, right? When two plasma fields interact, okay, and it could be a weak interaction, medium, or strong, and it's often associated with Birkeland currents. So see how Birkeland currents create these effects that can ultimately create the auroras and all these things, right? And this has to do with plasma phenomena and nothing to do with these gravitational whatever the hell they're talking about, right? So now we're going to get into the part of the sound in space and how the sun was created through like sound, and how when the ancestors say things are sung into existence, like what they mean scientifically, right? Because they didn't have as many words to express these things. So this is actually, these are acoustic waves on the sun. Acoustic waves. Anyone look at what acoustic waves? Acoustic waves, okay? Solar acoustic waves. Low frequency sound waves from the sun generated by turbulent convection. Okay? Convection, compression, right? Things happening. Magnetic fields moving, right? Astroseismology. So they actually have a whole science of how they study these sounds of these bodies, right? These sound waves, right? They analyze the internal structure of the star or the sun by studying their oscillation rate, which is caused by the moving sound waves inside the star or sun. So literally, they're measuring the oscillation rate of that body is coming from sound waves, literally inside of it. Sun sonification. They have a whole science on what the sun sounds like. That's how they study it. But they're going to study it through EMF. But what's a radio wave? We went over that earlier, right? P modes. These are pressure-driven acoustic waves generated by the turbulent convection of plasma near the sun's surface. The most prominent of these oscillations occur at a period above about 5 minutes, which corresponds to a frequency of approximately 3 millihertz. Okay? Sound waves all over and inside the sun. Alright? And that plasma reaches us through solar wind and different things. And these sound waves, there's sound waves in our atmosphere between us, the moon, and the sun. Because that's not space, technically. Okay? Remember that symbol is very deep. Okay? That's the vector fields of the electric field. Okay? This is a representation of the sun. Okay? So there's different cultures, right? We could do the natives with the 5 suns. We could do the Egyptians with like Ra and Horus and Osiris. Okay, I'm gonna use the Hindus for this example. Okay, but Matara and Lord, I'm not even gonna disrespect, creates the sun to provide heat, light, energy, and life to Earth. The original sun was born through divine manifestation, Saturn. Okay, so within the Hindu cosmology, okay, the original sun was created through divine manifestation, which is Saturn. Okay, and later on, these two gods, okay, which we're talking about, the magnetic field and the dielectric field, came together to create this new sun that we have now. Okay, so when there's scientists, we're gonna get into that right now. There's scientists that talk about that planets are born from within the sun. The sun was created to mimic Saturn's golden age. That had a lot to do with like what alchemy was doing with turning lead into gold. That's a divine process of what happened with Saturn. Okay, and that's the sun is mimicking Saturn's golden age. So Saturn is where these planets were birthed from. And since the sun is a mimic of Saturn, it has the qualities to have planets be produced from it, but it's just too small. Okay, so the sun is too small to create planets. Okay, it's a mimic of Saturn's golden age. Right? And there's people like Dr. Tom Van Flanders, okay, who said planets form from inside the sun. All right, and he found many Jupiter planets, all right, hot Jupiter planets, which according to the accretion model shouldn't exist. Okay, he found hundreds. Okay, over 400. Okay, discovered by him. Okay, and he observed it firsthand. And you know they don't like people like that, right? Like that's why art was denied access to telescopes, because once you start debunking their model, they don't like it. They get rid of you, and then later they call people crazy for even questioning it, right? So MT Keish's plasma science: how light, gravity, and electromagnetism are connected. When these forces come in balance in respect to where the sun is, planets form. Okay, so his works combine electromagnetism and gravity through the sun, and the sun has the qualities to form planets. That's why people think that the planets actually form inside the sun. Okay, even people like Terrence Howard mentioned that. Okay, but there's been another topic. There's been black cubes coming from the sun, and people recorded this already, and that has to do with the beings who created that, right? So a lot of people write it off, video this or picture that, but people can look these things up. So we're gonna get into this section of why these things happen, and this is a sun deck. Okay, so hospitals used to use the sun as a healing thing. Everyone did for thousands of years until now, because we're de-evolving. We're not de-evolving. Society's attempting to de-evolve people. So that's a sun deck. Okay, so sun decks, right? It's an outside deck for patients to heal in the sun, right? Because it's something now that they call vitamin D. But vitamin D doesn't exist. Vitamins don't exist. Okay, minerals exist, but vitamins don't. That's another science. We'll get into that, into the biology parts of this, all right? This series, but we're not there yet. Doctors up until the 1800s needed to know astrology in order to qualify. So that's something that's very important when you're dealing with energies, right? Because there's already, and the CIA documents already prove this, but we already knew this without the government and the scientists proving it. But people could remote view or astral project and do surgeries on people, but energetically like locate, what part of the body something's happening. Like there's this energetic like congestion going on, and they know how to like release the valves there and get the pressure away. And a lot of those sciences have been taken away, or people had to hide it and it's hidden, right? So these are powers that we over here on this channel, we're gonna create avenues for kids and people to practice these type of powers and just know they exist, right? That's the future of society that we're bringing on our end here. That's what we're going to create. But anyway, heliobiology. So there's a whole science on how the sun heals people, heals the earth, and how they interact. Okay, and it was founded by a man named Alexander Leonidovich Shevhevsky. I hope I'm not butchering your name, sir. Okay, the connection between space weather and human biology. All right, so how this movement of the celestial bodies, along with the inductions and excitations of their fields and all that stuff, how that affects us and our biology and everything on Earth, the Earth's biology, the beings' biology on Earth. It's very important because of the upcoming conversation we're about to have right now. Actually, it's coming up. So this is how we're gonna end it, and this is a refrigerator that's gonna be important for what they're doing, right? So we know that there's been an attack on the sun and the atmosphere. Okay, and we're gonna go over the reasons why. Okay, one of the reasons why is what they call global warming, or what we call solar maximum, right? Which is more. It's more than just solar maximum, because we're coming into a new age totally. Okay, so for years and years and years, people have known that the Earth is heating up, this is what's making these winters very suspicious. Okay, because everything's supposed to be warming up. So we know that they're creating technology that's cooling the Earth, and they've already admitted it. Okay, so let's go over a few facts, and then we'll get into that part. Okay, so the sun at this point in time is green, and the sun used to be. Remember when the sun used to be like yellow, and now it looks white? Um, there's no such thing as white, and as far as colors, so the highest frequencies, wavelengths that we get here on Earth are the blue and the green. That's what they measure from the sun, the most waves as far as colors. So since white isn't a color, the sun is green. Right? For anybody, for any scientist, and when scientists say stars can't be green, and they say the sun is a star, there we go, evidence right there. Anyway, the sun is also missing colors in the spectrum. All right, that's very important. That has to do with the sun changing over time, because the sun is changing, and people known this for thousands of years. They were talking about it. Now they don't want to admit it, but you could look. There's plenty of scientific articles on how this is the hottest years. All these things happen. They never recorded these things before. It's hotter than it's ever been. A bunch of different things. Okay, scientists are even preparing for the next Carrington event, which is a huge solar flare. That giant solar flare that we're talking about, right? Super flare. Scientists are preparing for it too. They're just not talking about it, right? So, so what they're doing, they have this whole science, right? It's called solar geoengineering, and what they're trying to do is attempt to like cool off the planet or cool off the sun or block it off, right? Just like the Simpsons, right? Mr. Burns, which is Bill Gates, right? So there's even experiments to dim the sun, right? They've conducted them, and they are now. That's why it was a cold winter. Okay, they're testing their technology. All right, you got things like HARP, you got these satellites, you got different things, right? And what they're doing is just like what a refrigerator does. Okay, so cold kills energy like batteries. So let's break this down real quick. What I mean. So when you put food into a refrigerator, the refrigerator doesn't cool off any food. That's not what's going on. Okay, and you could walk to the back of your refrigerator for the evidence. Okay, it's warm behind that refrigerator. There's a reason why it's warm. They're literally, it's sucking the heat out of the food. Okay, so picture the technology that they put into the sky, that even grounded too, that they're sucking the energy out of the planet, out of the sun, right? They're attempting to suck the energy out and cool it off, because there's no way to cool it off. So they gotta take the energy, they have to take the heat from it, right? So we're so attached to the sun. They're attacking us. They're attacking the powers, and that's the whole point of all of this. So why are they lying about it, or why are they teaching us what they're teaching us? Because number one, it proves their whole cosmology wrong. Number two, it proves that the sun is alive, the sun is conscious, the sun is helping us, it's talking to us, it's communicating with us, it's healing us. And they don't like that. They're materialistic. So here on this channel, what we did is we just proved that they're liars, and that the sun is alive, and that you can communicate with it. So to the collective, this is more evidence. All right. Next, we're going to tackle the moon. What is the moon? It's different than the sun. Okay. And from there, we're going to tackle astrology, and astrology is going to directly link us to Earth. Okay. And we're going to get into some really interesting topics. So for today, thank you for tuning in. I'm very grateful. All right, it's been raining a lot because they messed up the weather, so it's not April showers bring May flowers anymore. But we're appreciative. All right, it's gonna be a beautiful summer no matter what they say. And I'm on the other side of the world if you're watching, and it's winter right now. Blessings to you, and they're attacking because it's supposed to be warm. So on that note, peace.